We're recording, we're broadcasting, and all right.
Good morning and welcome to this session. We hope to be able to answer many of your questions by making a very good presentation of what we would like to offer to your children. We take the education of our children in Lancaster very seriously, and for that purpose, we have created or expanded our cyber offerings. We now have called these the Cyber Pathways Academy. We have been working diligently with a group of very strong educators who are making sure that we are offering what your children deserve if you decide to go to the cyber option. With us today is Ryan Strelo, the coordinator of assessment, evaluation, and research. Sabrina Paraga, who is our counselor at the Cyber Pathway Academy and a very experienced cyber educator. Michelle Byers, who is the principal at Burroughs and has been a strong member of this team, helping us make sure that we ensure the best conditions for young students joining the Cyber Pathway Academy. Also in the background, Mr. Adam Oren, who's the Director of Communication for SDOL. And I will leave you now with Ryan, who will be presenting what are the options that we are offering and will guide us in this session. Thank you, Ryan.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Benitez, and good morning. So as Dr. Benitez shared, we understand that there are a lot of decisions that we are all making on a daily basis related to education, related to work, related to home. So we're hoping that this morning in our time together, we will be able to provide you with some information that will help you to make an informed decision. So the reason why we again have these individuals on the panel is because we recognize that there are a lot of questions. And as much as we are continuing to try to respond to questions that come in, the presentation itself may bring up some more questions. So you do have the ability to pose questions throughout the session. You can type your questions in, and then as much as physically possible, the panelists will continue to answer those questions. Please know that as you are posing a question and the team is answering, you are also able to see what has already been answered. So as you go back up or down the list, you can see there may be similar questions and the answer may already be provided. After we go through the information on the slides, we will touch base with the panelists to see if there were any common questions that we should address for the entire audience, because they may be things that everyone may be wondering. So with that said, we will start into the informational portion. So what our goal is for today is to share with you an overview of the expansion of the cyber program, as Dr. Benitez mentioned, and specifically these three areas. What are the highlights in each of the pathways, elementary and secondary? What are the unique features of Cyber Pathways Academy? And what's the enrollment process? How do I express interest? How do I apply? What do I do next? So the biggest change, the biggest update to the program is the addition of an elementary experience, so kindergarten to grade 5. So this is through Accelerate Education, and that is a research-based platform that our internal coordinators reviewed. There are obviously lots of choices out there of platforms in which we can engage students. So this isn't just chosen randomly. This is chosen based on experiencing the platform, looking at the data, hearing experiences from others. So that is the platform that we will be using for the elementary portion. So what does it look like? We think is important. So when students log in, they will see a layout of their courses, what they need to do, what their activities are for the day. Critically important is that there is a resource module for parents, for all of you as the learning coach, to get more information about your role, how to navigate the platform, and how to prepare your children for the lesson. The platform also offers both live and pre-recorded sessions. So this does allow for some flexibility throughout the day as students are engaging in this learning. And weekly progress reports, at very minimum, a weekly update on how students are progressing with the content that they are covering within the platform. So thinking about a normal day obviously is different because students would not be within a traditional school building. So a sample schedule, this would be a sample for kindergarten to grade 3. For the higher elementary levels, very, very similar. Additional information is on the website as well. But you can see the different segments of the day. So students will be engaged in a significant amount of time on their device engaging in that learning. And that's the same for any alternative online platform that students would be choosing if they're not in the traditional building. So that is an important piece to be aware of. So you can see the breakdown of all the different subjects, the morning meeting and what the learning coach should be doing with children, what happens in the afternoon, some brain breaks built in there, especially for younger students. So this is just to give you a layout of what a typical day may look like for children engaged in Pathways Academy. So what do students get? What do they do? What do they receive? So students at Cyber Pathways Academy do receive instruction by Pennsylvania certified teachers through an alternative platform. And this is a very important point, that this is choosing a different program from what students would receive in the traditional buildings. So they are, as we discussed earlier, engaging in the coursework through that cyber platform. So they have an instructor with them or available to them on the platform. However, students also have regular check-ins with our SDOL advisors who are also certified and very experienced teachers. And they support the tracking of programs and providing support to students as they work through their experience. Students can also take advantage of in-person tutoring and connection at the elementary hubs throughout the city, as well as the main hub with, again, their academic advisor. For our older students, there is the opportunity to talk to college and career planners, make sure that they're on track for life after high school, and then online tutoring available through the platform as well. So this really is a combination of people available to students, including the parent or guardian as that critical learning coach. To expand a little bit more, we mentioned elementary hubs. So what this means is throughout the city, and they will be placed in specific areas throughout the district, we will have Cyber Pathway Academy hubs. And one of our advisors will be assigned to that hub. The purpose of this is so that students can go to connect with that advisor at a place that's closer to their home building, so that there's not just one location where everyone needs to go. So as you can see, and this is just obviously a visual representation, but they will be spread throughout the district so that we are not putting all of them close to each other. Another important point here is that there will not be a Cyber Pathways Academy advisor in every single building. This is why the design will be through the hubs, and students who are close to that building will use that hub. So some additional things that are important related to what students receive if they are part of Cyber Pathways Academy. they are able to participate in all of these experiences that the rest of the students in SDOL experience. So this includes field trips, extracurricular activities, band, sports, plays, lots and lots of course options to meet student needs. I won't read every one of these to you, but to highlight a few more, equipment is provided to full-time students. So this includes computer, headset, power cord, backpack, and school supplies. Internet reimbursement is also available for full-time students when they receive that equipment. The last bullet is important, and we'll talk a little bit about this. Flexibility to the standard school day, because there is access 24/7 for students who want to accelerate or who need a little bit more flexibility in their day. However, it is important as we look back and think about the schedule, the sample schedule that we showed, it is still a pretty busy day. So it is important that students have time carved out of the day and that parents are able to work with their children during that time, because it isn't possible to do all of this just in the evening or on the weekend. So it is important that even though there is that flexibility of time and the schedule is not as rigid, that there still needs to be a commitment of time for students to engage in that work. So I've mentioned a few times the learning coach. So parents and guardians serve as the learning coach. You can see the various responsibilities that are part of this role. So guiding students through the lessons, discussing concepts and overseeing assignments that students are completing. Tools and games. There are materials, or I should say activities too, that may be outside. They may be something different. The student has to go somewhere. They have to experience something. So it's not all just virtual through a device. Keeping the student on schedule and on pace, making sure that courses are being completed with fidelity. And of course, critically important is the communication with the teacher, with the academic advisor, who serves as that liaison with the online instructor. So the really important star here is understanding the importance of the role as the learning coach is key to success. So taking on that role of learning coach is making a commitment to helping students go beyond what's online and actually making those concepts real for them. So it really is a team, it really is a collaboration. There have been a lot of questions about advanced placement and international baccalaureate, so our AP and our IB course offerings. So we want to make sure we bring some clarity to this. Course offerings through Cyber do include AP courses. Placement and scheduling is dependent on course history and the student's academic plan. And these courses are very self-guided and may require additional materials. So the reason that that's important is that it's different from what students on the McCaskey campus would be used to in terms of their AP coursework and having that instructor with them every day. So these courses are much more self-guided. And the other reason why it says dependent on course history and academic plan is because it would be an individual conversation with the team at Cyber to look at all of the other courses in which the student is engaging to determine the availability in the schedule and what that would look like for the student's individual plan. Students can also be part-time students at Cyber Pathways Academy for advanced credit. So in addition to their full schedule and additional building, if they want to accelerate their learning and add additional coursework, that is another option. The difference is the IB coursework. IB coursework is only available at the McCaskey campus, but can be blended with Cyber courses. So full transition to Cyber Pathways Academy would not allow for engaging in IB coursework. But again, they could be combined. So if a student is still continuing with IB coursework, that would have to be done at the McCaskey campus, but can be coupled with Cyber Pathways Academy. So here we talk about the expectations. So students are expected to remain in Cyber Pathways Academy for an entire school year. That's ideal. And the reason for that is what we've talked about previously. This is an entirely different learning environment. So this is not like changing classrooms, changing school buildings. This is an entirely different learning experience. So it's not in the best interest of students to move them frequently. So if necessary, however, because we recognize that this will take place, transitions can be made during the school year, but they are restricted to marking periods. And frequent changes back and forth within one school year are not very feasible. So we recognize, because we've seen the responses coming in, that there is a lot of interest in cyber due to the current situation and families being hesitant about children being in school buildings. But again, it's important that we mention it is our responsibility to make sure that we're keeping keeping their education as consistent as possible, and moving students frequently would not facilitate that. So once students decide to return to the home building or to come to cyber, this is a collaboration between the cyber team and the team in the traditional building to make that a smooth transition. The other expectation that we see is parents and guardians serving as the learning coach and truly being active partners in the learning process. So this really is not something that students can just do completely independently. And it is different than what students experienced last spring. So last spring, when we transitioned to virtual learning, that was still with their teacher who they had previously in the building. So this is not the same experience. So this is much more online, again, with that teacher who is available to them, but it's not the same as what children experienced last spring. Being a student at cyber, as we said, is not less time and is not less work. So students who are successful at the academy are highly organized, self-motivated, and able to really dedicate time to that program. Accommodations, we realize this is extremely important. Accommodations can be made for services related to special education, English learners, for students with physical disabilities. Again, communication with the Cyber Pathways Academy team and any related service providers is essential to determine reasonable and appropriate possibilities. And those conversations are already happening with special education coordinators to really work together to determine what are the options that we have to make sure that this is a positive learning experience. So we talked about transitions, and we just want to clarify this again, because we fielded a lot of questions about students moving between buildings. Cyber Pathways Academy does provide a standards aligned and rigorous replacement opportunity. These courses are not identical to the curriculum and instruction in the traditional buildings. So while it still does meet the standards and is taught by certified Pennsylvania teachers, it is not the same as what students would be experiencing inside the traditional building. As a result, transitions must be very carefully considered and really would be based on the district calendar, as we mentioned. So you can see that arrow that isn't intended to be a fluid arrow back and forth between cyber and the traditional building. So this is important for the student, both academically and socially, to make sure that we provide for smooth transitions when they do need to happen. So you probably are seeing a lot of information about cyber charter schools. And we want to make sure that we clarify the difference between Cyber Pathways Academy and cyber charter schools. So you can see some maybe compare and contrast, if we want to call it that. At Cyber Pathways Academy, students do receive individualized and personal support for maximum student achievement. As we talked about, they have an academic advisor who they can meet with in person at the hub, they can meet with virtually, and they have someone from the district monitoring their learning. At Cyber Charter School, this is limited, usually in person, and is just in very central locations throughout the state. You can see where some of those are, so not necessarily the most convenient opportunities. Cyber Pathways Academy is part of the local school district. So this is not a private business located somewhere else. So what that means is that the money that is, the money paid through taxes stays in the district. Anytime a student is enrolled in a cyber charter school, it actually is taking money away from the district for that student, and you could see that mentioned on the slide. Thirdly, students who are enrolled in Cyber Pathways Academy remain an SDOL student with all of the benefits and supports of the school community, as opposed to cyber charter, where students would be leaving SDOL for a new school. And if you were to review performance data across the state, you would notice that cyber charter schools are often in the lower performing group in the state. So some information to be aware of, because these are not the same things. And we want to make sure that that is clear. Cyber Pathways Academy, not the same as a cyber charter school experience. So what do I do if I'm interested? Great questions. So there is an extensive amount of information available on the website. So through the Cyber Pathways Academy page, you are able to see information about the elementary pathways, the secondary pathways, frequently asked questions, additional resources. There is still an inquiry survey on the website that you can complete, and that information then comes into the team, and also your home building is aware of that, aware of the inquiry, and then additional follow-up will take place. Once an inquiry is completed, then you will receive via email confirmation of the inquiry, additional information about Cyber Pathways Academy, an application to complete, and the frequently asked questions document. So what we are encouraging, particularly now as we get closer and closer to the start of school, is submitting that application in a timely manner. So we have many, many inquiries at this point, but we do not have many applications. So we recognize there needs to be time for families to think about this and complete the application, but there won't be any change in students' enrollment until there's an application, which is followed up by an orientation/interview meeting with the team at Cyber. So that is a critical step, and that provides an opportunity to talk about the coursework, talk about the best learning plan for the student, and make an informed decision on, is this the right place for my child and for our family? Additional questions can be directed to the school counselor, another staff member in the school, and again, through the email that you will receive as a follow-up. Generally, those are happening within the same day. So we receive lots of inquiries each morning that is refreshed. And in most cases, before the end of that day, families are receiving that response. However, due to the volume of inquiries and anticipated applications, any students who apply for Cyber's Pathway Academy after Monday, August 10th may experience a delayed start in the academy. This does not mean that students would be forced into the home building, but it may not be immediately starting with Cyber on the first day of school. Please know that those initial conversations with the team at Cyber and even some beginning of the year communication will still be taking place virtually. So students will not be forced to come to the hub until that is a conversation between the advisor and the family. So as I mentioned, recognition of inquiries and completed applications will be sent via email within 3 business days of receipt. But quite honestly, it's happening quicker than that. But please be aware that this will go to the email address that is completed on that inquiry form. So this will be done through that email address. If you have not yet filled out the inquiry form and you plan to, please be sure that you include as much information as possible. Many of those fields are required, not all of them. But what then happens is the team has to identify those missing pieces. So it's important for us to have grade level, school, and again, a lot of those areas are required. But in order for us to have efficient tracking, we have to confirm some of that information. So the more that you are able to provide to us, the more quickly we can move through that process. So at this point, what I would like to do is I would like to hear from the panel as they are monitoring the questions, and we can determine if there are common things that we are seeing that we should address for the large group. So at this point, I will turn it over to the team to see what are some common things that we can discuss for the entire audience.
Speak to the curriculum questions. There were some questions about the alignment with the Schools of Lancaster curriculum and the curriculum within the Cyber Pathways Academy. Both curriculums are aligned to state standards. However, they are different. The elementary curriculum is different in SDL than the one that is offered through Cyber Pathways. So there would be some things that would not be a part of the cyber program. So if you're familiar with ARC and the Blue Bags and those types of programs, that would not be available in Cyber Pathways, but it is a curriculum that is strongly aligned to PA state standards.
So I'm also looking through the questions, but are there other things that we're seeing from the panel regarding common questions? So one of the things that I am noticing is questions about inquiries and applications. So please know that simply placing the inquiry is not going to move the student from their home building to cyber. So that does not happen until the application is completed and the conversation with the team. So that is a critically important step because we cannot automatically switch enrollment for a student over to cyber until we have that application and we have the conversation with the cyber team again to make sure that that is the appropriate placement. So I just caught a question that is, I'm very glad that it came in because we did want to address this. So there is curiosity very naturally about what happens if schools are forced to close again. Do all students then become students at Cyber Pathways Academy? And the answer is no. So only students who are at Cyber Pathways Academy would remain students at Cyber Pathways Academy. So students who are in the traditional building would then engage in virtual learning similar to what they experienced last spring. So that would still be separate programs, and that was happening last spring as well. It just wasn't as, there wasn't as much awareness possibly of that, but that's exactly what happened last year as well. So when buildings closed, students who were already at cyber, then called Lancaster Cyber Program, were still engaging in their cyber work, while students from the traditional building were engaged in virtual learning. So thank you for that question because that is very, very important. That's very important that we make that distinction. So they wouldn't just automatically become students at cyber. There are a lot of questions coming in about special education. And what I would like to address on that is that the special education team is working very closely with the team at cyber, particularly because of the details involved in special education services. That has to be a one-on-one conversation. So we would not want to give information that then turns out that it doesn't work for a specific situation. So I know that that's hard, but we need that to be a collaborative conversation. There is a question about application and inquiries, and I did address that on this slide here. But again, once the inquiry is made on the website, the next step is going to be that email confirmation. If you have not received that within 3 days, then that would be the time to reach out. So understanding again that there is a turnaround time there in terms of receiving the inquiry and then getting those materials out. The application piece then is the next important piece. As building principals are trying to balance classes, determine numbers in classrooms, and there's other information that you've also filled out now, and I did see a question come in about that. If I put my preference as this, can I now change it to cyber? So that was not tying you into anything. So there are still options. We have, actually, as I look at the date, exactly 1 month until the first day of school. So you do still have an opportunity to do that. The trick is we cannot have students enrolled in both at the same time. So students cannot be enrolled in the traditional building and enrolled at cyber, unless of course that's their plan. But that's why it's important, the sooner the better, that that application is submitted so that we can move through the process and try to get that student registered in cyber for the start of the year.
If you don't mind, there is one question that I noticed coming up kind of frequently, what I would like to answer. Some parents are asking how realistic is it to be a learning coach for a K through 5 student or another student interested in Cyber Pathways Academy when the parent is working during the school day. And we recognize that challenge, but one thing I really want to point out is if the parent works during the day, then another responsible adult would still need to assume and serve that role as the learning coach, as students cannot realistically complete this work home alone. So I just wanted to bring that up because I've seen that question a lot. And that's to be sure that the student is making active academic success and that they're engaged in their learning during the school day. Since we are a part of the School District of Lancaster, we do take daily attendance as well.
Thank you, Sabrina. That's important. There were several questions on that, which are very natural. So thank you for addressing that. There are several questions about gifted services. This would also be coupled with the conversations about special education. And I please understand that we are not avoiding that question, but what we are avoiding is giving information that is not applicable to every situation. So as challenging as that can be, we must have that conversation with representatives from special education. And please know that there are members of the Cyber Pathways Academy team who do work specifically with the special education department. So it's not as if we would be moving that student over to cyber and they would lose that connection. They would still have a support teacher in that setting as well. So they wouldn't be completely disconnected from those services. So Dr. Benitez, is there anything that you would like to add? And then if not, we will move into the portion of continuing to respond to questions just through typing.
Yes, I just wanted to expand a little bit on what you said about special education and the importance of recognizing that the I on IEP means individualized educational plan, and an individualized educational plan requires a group of educators, parents, to sit together and look at the needs of the student and design a plan for the student, whether it is in the school building or in cyber, is the same type of process. So I just want to make sure that parents understand that that is not going to change. We will continue to do what we do for our students is we design an individualized educational plan for every single one of our special education students. And I saw that Adam wanted to add something. I don't know if he's going to do that now.
No, I just, sorry, I just hit that in there because Ryan was answering that question live as we were.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we can now move to the next level of the program.
So
To everyone for coming and attending the session. I just wanted to remind you that I am Dr. Abby Benitez, Director of Schools, and that we are very proud of our teachers and staff who have been working really diligently to develop this option for our children, and that we welcome the inquiries and will continue to support your questions and make sure that we can help you in making decisions for this fall. Have a good day.
thank you, Dr. Benitez. So again, please, what will happen now at this point is that you won't see us anymore, but we will still stay on and continue to respond to questions, particularly if they haven't been answered at this point in another way. This session is recorded and it will be made available, and there is one remaining session which will take place on August the 6th, and that is from 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That is the same day that there is a larger community town hall in the evening for the general reopening plan. So there is one more opportunity. It is the same information. It's the same standard set of information. But if you hear from others who were not able to attend, please know that there is one more session available. And both sessions have been recorded, one that we had earlier this week and the session from this morning. So again, I appreciate the responses from the panelists, all of the questions from you being here with us. As Dr. Benitez mentioned, my role in the district is the coordinator of assessment, evaluation, and research, but at this point, currently working very closely with the Cyber Pathways Academy team. So we thank you for joining us, and please know that we will continue to work through your questions and support your decision-making that we know is critically important. So again, you won't see us anymore, but we will still be here responding to questions through text. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.